Hello and welcome to the class. I am Vishali Sharma, your psychology educator, and today we are going to discuss chapter 7, that is the last chapter for our board exam, class 12. These are certain things about myself. If you want to join my live classes, you may contact on the number given below. Without any further delay, let's begin. Social influence and group processes. So this is again another topic from social psychology, and we're going to discuss what groups are, what teams are, what crowd is, what mob is, and what other forms of group we are part of. So first of all, we'll discuss groups. What is a group? It is basically organized, it has some structure, we have more than two people in it, we are interdependent on one another, we interact with one another, we again influence one another, and then we have certain norms on which we behave in that group, then we have common motives and goals, and then a sense of belongingness. Now let's take an example of a group project. Whenever you are a part of a group project, you have more than two people in that particular group, you interact with one another, you also have certain interdependence on one another, that if one person is not doing something, you cannot go on the second thing. Then you have influence of one another, that if this person is more intelligent or more knowledgeable on that part, then we will discuss and we will ask about that thing from that individual. Then we have certain norms, that this is the time that we are going to meet and this is the time we're not going to meet and all of that. Then we have common motives and common goals to produce that particular article we are a part for. Then we have a sense of belongingness. Then once this whole thing is done, you will go back and you will see that after the whole struggle of making that project, then after the competition or anything you made that project for, you will have such a sense of bonding with that group you worked day and nights with. So that's the sense of belongingness that we share. Then we have crowd and team. See, as the name suggests, crowd is a collection of people present at one place, but they're not dependent or they're not having same goal to be there. Okay, there's no structure, there's no belongingness, there's no the behavior is irrational, and they're not dependent on one another. Think of yourself in a supermarket. You all are there, but you have some different goals, different motives, no interdependence, and no sense of belongingness. Whereas in teams, again, go to the group project. When you're in a team, you have special kind of groups. Like for example, you want to create a particular motorbike, or you want to create a particular solar system project or something related to all of this. Then we have members who are committed to that particular goal and they're going to work for it. Then we have certain positive synergy. What is positive synergy? Basically, you have an energy towards getting the work done. Then you have certain performance in the team, dependent in the teamwork. If you don't work as a team, you do not actually have somebody to say that yeah, we have done it, because you all did not do it. There was just one individual, so there should be teamwork. Then the members should hold themselves responsible for every action that they're doing. Then we have audience and mob. See, audience, if you went to a Taylor Swift concert or to Diljit Dosanjh concert, so there are multiple concerts happening, you are a audience there. So you have a collection of people assembled at a place for, they're generally passive, they don't care about hitting and all to people, they're just there to see the artist performing. Whereas in mob, you have a definite sense of purpose. Now think of people who just go to hit other individual, or there's a group of people who just enters the rally, like a religious rally going on, and then hits the other individual with the sense of purpose of hitting and making it a whole political nuisance. Then you have action of people with the common direction, they're all having their face covered and hitting and all of that, they have a common purpose. Then homogeneity of behavior and thought. So their behavior is homogeneous and their thought is also homogeneous. What is homogeneous? Basically, they do all of them things in a one way, that yes, we're here to hit another people. Then we have, why do people join group? Please write GPS4 as an acronym to it. First of all, a security. Don't you feel being with your family or your groups or your friends gives you a sense of security, whereas being alone gives you a sense of discomfort or something like काश मैं लोग के पास होता या काश मेरे साथ कोई होता वाली feeling? Yeah, it does happen. So it gives us protection and comfort. Then we come to status. If we are a part of a great, let's say, government officials group or something related to that, we ourselves feel like, wow, what a status that I have because I'm a part of this group. What do we call it? I have done my postgrad from UP, so there was this sentence that they used to say, Chacha ji is a neta or something. I just don't don't remember the whole sentence, but there's a sentence of this sort. Then self-esteem. So when you are a part of that group, you have a high self-esteem. High self-esteem, why? अपनी आंखों में अपनी इज्जत क्यों बढ़ जाती है? Because you think that I am able to be with other people. I'm not a lone person, or not a very egoistic, or sometimes not so adjustable human, because I do get adjusted with other individuals. Then a satisfaction to one's own social and psychological needs. Why social? Because on Diwali, if you don't have anybody to do Diwali party with, do you think that you have your social needs fulfilled? No. Psychological needs, to meet other individual, to feel happy, to do catharsis, to listen to someone, to tell something to someone. All of these psychological needs are there, which can be fulfilled when you're a part of a group. Then you have a goal achievement when you're working towards a goal. So for example, your project, so power is in the majority. If there are multiple people working towards a particular project, they can, if like all find themselves accountable and responsible, they can do it. They can do it as efficiently and as much as like faster as any other individual. Then you have provide knowledge and information. If you are a part of multiple people's group, then you have multiple opinions, multiple people literate in multiple subjects, giving you more and more information and knowledge. Then you have what facilitates group formation. अब ये group बनता कैसे है? Now we're going to discuss that proximity. We are always, like most of the time, we are friends. Like when we are children, we are friends with people who are in our neighborhood or who are in our class. Not from somebody from grade 12th nursery, people not getting mingled with somebody from grade 12th or somebody from different country, because we don't have cell phones to connect on Tinder and other websites, right? So now proximity is a factor when you form a group. Then you have similarity. So if you have same sort of thinking and mindset, so you will see people who have like similar interests, like in thriller movies or in comedy movies or in romantic movies. So they gel up together, they talk about the movies, they talk with each other. So certain sense of similarity gets that individual actually have a good sense of connect and forming the group with that individual. Then you have sorry, common goal and motive. Common goals and motives. So here we have people from group of like-minded people who want to attain a similar goal. So if we have everybody out there having the similar goal and similar motive, for example, let's take an example of cleanliness drive. So all of us just want that our society should be clean. So we go on a drive, we do rallies, we actually plant more and more trees, and we put dustbins here and there, so that we actually get the society clean, and we have more people together to form together to work for that goal. So we are all working with the similar motive. Now we come to stages of group formation. So Tuckman did the work in how the group is formed. When I'm going to explain you, just remember that some group that you have made like right now, if you're in school, that how did you form your friends group? If you're in college, how did you form your friends group again? How did you form your society group? How did you start working on your project? So first of all, we have forming. First of all, we get to meet other people. We are like just knowing each other, whether we fit with them or not, whether we are like there's certain sense of excitement that how am I going to dress for these people and all of this, and then certain apprehension, wo mere bare mein kya soche honge, do I know this much to be a part of this group or not? So all of this happened. Then comes the storming phase. Have you ever seen, after having a group of 15 and 10 and 12 individual in first year of your college, or like whatever time in your school, you get to get a lot of fights after certain time, like certain time or certain meetings, like after 3 to 4 months or after 3 to 4 weeks, you start to have storming. Why? Because now your opinions, your ideas, your thoughts start to clash. You guys start to think that this is not the person I want to see around me, this is not the person I want to talk to, this person is very selfish, this person is so mean, this person has like multiple boyfriends, this person has multiple girlfriends, and all of this sort of behavior of other people does affect you personally, and you don't want to be with them, or you don't want to follow their instruction, you don't want to be in that group. So all of that storming thing happens. You have the conflict going on. Now here there is a hierarchy in leadership, in groups, and they actually develop a clear vision after this. They are talking to each other about the conflicts. They are talking that why does it matter, or why does it bother to you if I have multiple friends, if I have that opinion. Let's talk about it and let's think about it in another way, right? Then we come to norming. So when they're talking after this conflict, they are norming. They're giving the norms of the group, because now ultimately if you want to succeed and if you want to plan a goal, if you want to do something in your group, then you must have certain norms that this is the time we're going to meet, this is the time we're going to work, this is the time we're going to make presentations, this is the time we're going to practice, and these are certain things that we must do, and we will not be going in some other sort of debates in these time slots. Then we have performing. So finally, after norming, storming, forming everything, you're actually performing the task. You're actually developed that project. You have actually made that thing you were working for, and now you're going to perform. And after performing, mostly the groups adjourn. Adjourn means khatam ho jana, dissolve ho jana. Then stages may go simultaneously or sometimes back and forth, and they may sometimes mix, because you might think that oh forming pehle hoga, then ही हम storm करेंगे, then ही norm करेंगे, then ही हम perform करके join करेंगे. Sometimes storm से शुरू होता है group का formation. You basically talk about each other's ideas, you basically fight with one another, you basically tell everybody that this is something I would like to work on, this is something I would like to work on. So you have certain setups where your professors actually see if your project idea is good or not. So that is where you are actually putting forward all your ideas in the first place and actually working towards performance of that particular object, and not actually going on forming and all of those stages first. Okay, so now we come to group structure. Four important elements of the group structure. First of all, we have roles. So every group member has certain role. For example, you have your mother, your father, your sister, or your brother, or your grandparents, or your siblings, and everybody, okay, in your house. So your father has certain job to do, your father has certain role to play, your mother has certain role to play, as you yourself has something to do. Okay, so in that case, you have certain expectations from the society to be fulfilled. Your behavior should be in accordance to that. If you're a boy, you should behave in a particular way. If you're a girl, you should behave in a particular way. All of these are roles and social expectations from us. Then we come to norms. So there are certain unwritten rules. Norms are not written anywhere, they're just there. These are expected standards of behavior that are there, and they're unspoken rules to see like how norms represent actually shared way of viewing the world. Because now if you're seeing the world, you see that all the women dress like that, all the men dress like that, all the women keep long hair, all the men keep short hair. So all of these are unwritten rules, nobody have written it anywhere. If a woman go bald, it's nowhere wrong. Okay, and if a men actually have a ponytail, that's again is nothing wrong in it. Then you have status. So relative social position given by a group member is basically a status that you get when you are part of that group. Example, if you're a prime minister, if you're a chief minister, if you're a leader, if you're a CEO, if you're a clerk, if you're a employee, so all of these gives you a different sort of status. Okay, then you have different prestige associated with that status. It is not something ascribed. Sometimes it is ascribed because if nepotism works, then sometimes it is achieved. If nepotism doesn't work, then we have cohesiveness. So what is cohesiveness? The word have been taken into negative light here, whereas I would say that you should understand the word first. So it is basically togetherness, binding, mutual attraction among the group members. Positive words, right? Cool, good to go. So now the group members sometimes are very like-minded, are very like towards a particular goal. They are like very together, that they act and think and feel about a social unit in a particular way, and they have certain feeling of us and belongingness and them and towards the other group, and they do not leave that cohesive group. They have no opposite opinion in that group. If somebody thinks that something that the group is deciding is wrong, you're not allowed to speak, because you have togetherness, binding, mutual attraction, and us feeling towards that group. Then this group is very difficult to join, because there are people who are very, very cohesive, that they don't let anybody enter. Have you ever seen a Fevicol ad? Because because we were from the time when television was the primary thing to watch. So there was a Fevicol ad where cohesiveness has been shown between two elephants. Okay, so cohesiveness is stickiness, like too much stickiness. Okay, groupthink is a consequence of extreme cohesiveness. Light cohesiveness is okay, but extreme cohesiveness that you end up taking wrong decisions is basically wrong and is basically a thing which is called as groupthink. Then we come to types of group. So types of group, you might be wondering why are we talking about group, but yes, we have different types of group. With us, without us, there will be no group, and around us. So first of all, primary group. So primary group is pre-existing group. This is nothing to like, you cannot go and be a part of a primary group. It's something that is already ascribed, like your family. Okay, you have a warm emotional bonds with them. You are like your caste, your central, like that identity is central to you, that I am Vishali Sharma, a daughter from a Sharma family. So this is something part of my pre-existing formation. This is also something that is part of my identity. So here my ideas and values are getting developed because I'm a part of this group, and also this group is going to stay with all the stages of my life, and they do not have any option to leave this group, apparently. Then you have secondary group. So secondary group, individual join this group, your friends, your society, your social parties, and your school. So these are certain impersonal. You don't have a personal connect to everybody in your school, let's say. And again, these are indirect because you're not going to be a part of that group. You're going to be a part of school to study, but now ultimately you ended up being a part of this group. Then these are less frequent relationship and not meeting everybody on the daily basis, right? You yourself know how many times do you see your seniors or like way juniors in the classroom and talking to them? No, right? Then they're easy to leave and join another group, leave that school, join another group. Then you have formal group and informal group. So formal group is a group that that is of our colleagues, or project members, or like office, again college societies. So these are certain formal groups. Why formal? Because you have certain rules that you have to follow. You have to be in the group meeting by that time which is mentioned in the norm list. So then you have set of norms, have a definite role to play in that group. But in informal group, you do not have anything of that sort. You do not have norms, you do not have rules, you do not have some what do we call it, formal relationship with other individual. Hello, how are you doing? I'm doing really great. Even if you're not doing great, you have to say yes, I'm so happy. But in informal group, you have an emotional bond with the other individual. You can just go and cry on saying that I'm not happy. Okay, then you have in group and out group. So I have already talked to you like about the in group, us and them feeling in cohesiveness, right? So in group is a group where you feel us feeling that this is us, and out group is them, they, another group, not us. They are homogeneous, they're all alike, they're all like very bad, but we are great, we are smart, we are like tremendously very powerful. So here you have certain desirable traits in group, whereas undesirable traits and perceived negative traits in the out group. And this affects our social life because we do not indulge into any interaction with those individuals whom we think that they're they and we are we or us. So the members are like in group are perceived similar, they perceive like favorably, they have desirable traits, and on the other hand they are viewed differently and perceived negatively and affects our social lives. Now we have influence of group on individual behavior. Do you think that sometimes you get influenced by anybody in a group? Let's say if somebody is very rich, or if let's say somebody is very powerful, or if let's say somebody is a elder or an authority figure in a group, you do get affected. So if I am asking you to fill up a form because I'm your classmate, I want to do my dissertation, you might say no. But if my teacher, or if your teacher or your principal asks you to file actually write down or fill that form, you might do it because that's the authority coming in, right? So now social loafing, we've already discussed about it. It's a free rider effect that an individual effort actually reduce when you're working in a group. Obviously, if you have multiple people working on the same group, you think that why should I Why should I bother? If we are like 20 individual just working that on that similar project, let them do it. Why do I care? So that is when we actually think that blame will not come on only me but us. So let's not bother about it. And this is always seen in tug of war. Have you seen that rassi khichne wala game? One team on this end of the rassi and another team on that end of the rassi in that tug of war, like this. They're doing this and this and this and this, and somebody just doesn't care to be a part of the team, and they just don't give any effort in it. You can't actually measure the effort of an individual in it. So you're like, how am I supposed to measure the effort? There were 2 people and we were 5. Still we lost because there were people who were doing free rider effect. Yes, my friend, that's the reality. Now, why do social loafing occurs? First of all, members feel less responsible. They think they will care. I don't care. If I'm a part of this huge group, they should care most. Then motivation also decreases. Why? Because they think that, why do I care? Why do I just go on and do this? Nothing. Then performance of a group is not compared to what another group. So you think that it is not compared with another group. It is something that is there with me only, and I am going to do it the way I want to do it, because nobody is actually evaluating me personally. That you have improper or no coordination. You don't think other people needs to know what you're actually doing. Then belongingness of the same group is not important for that member. So in that team where you are just colleagues to one another, you met 1 week ago and you just don't know the names of other individual, how do you actually feel a sense of connectedness and belongingness to just do that tug of war competition just to win for the name of that company or something? You will not do it. Okay, then how to reduce social loafing? So this is what you should know. First of all, make each person responsible and identifiable for their effort. Then increase a pressure or a workload to work hard. That please work hard and you will get if the individual is accountable for their own whatever they do, their action. So now they are accountable for their actions. So they will have to put in effort on an individual basis because they'll be evaluated on that. Then you have increased sense of importance and value of the task. Now you will say that if you win, like if your team wins or if you win particularly, you will have a bonus or something like that. Then you have individual contribution is very important. If you don't contribute, the next step cannot be reached. Then you have strengthening of group cohesiveness. You make feel like give them a gala night, or if give them some party night where they can go like have a chill pill with one another, so they don't have like hesitation to do that tug of war, and they can actually work toward it because they have now group cohesiveness. Then you have group polarization. So group polarization is basically the outcome of group cohesiveness, because you are so cohesive that you end up taking the whole decision on either the one part of the spectrum or on the another, so positive or so negative, that either, like for example, you are a group of 5 individual, very cohesive, so you have given them the attitude scale to see whether they like to go on a trek to a mountain which is dangerous. So 2 of them said yes, 1 said no, I don't know, 2 of them said that they'll like see to it or something. So they have like multiple viewpoints, but once they cohesively connected to one another, they ended up taking a decision to either go on a trek to that particular dangerous mountain, or they actually ended up taking a decision to never go on a trek to any mountain because that is scary. So that is basically group polarization. So like-minded people actually favor a particular viewpoint and they make more favorable make you also more favorable towards it. Then we have bandwagon effect and formation of in-group. So if you have so much connectedness to one another, what are you going to do? You are either going to do bandwagon effect, that everybody is like favoring your viewpoint and you feel that I am validated, yes, I should do it. Then you have formation of in-group because you think that all of us are actually thinking in a similar way. So we are we and they are they. And now you're going to show conformity, thinking that they actually validated my previous point. Now I am also going to support them, and you become more and more stronger. So now we are done with today's lecture, and tomorrow we are going to discuss about the social influences, conformity, compliance and obedience. Ta-da!